What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Saved Show. This is your host, Justin. This is a weekly audio and visual journal where you get to watch as I walk closer to God. You watch me strive to become a better man, husband, father, and like I said, strengthen that relationship with Christ. Today, I've got a very special guest. He's been a longtime friend, and actually here today we have a face reveal. I think this is the first time that some of us have seen his face. He had the mystic sage about him. We've got the Stoic Christian here today. Good discussion. We kind of nerded out on content creation since that's what we've both taken up in the past year. He's been instrumental in helping me with certain tools and tricks, and definitely in the support realm, he's been great. And then we go into more of a discussion on masculinity, how Christ is the best example of masculinity. I want to get to the show, but first I wanted to say I'm very, very grateful for all the support lately. The saved.store page has been great. Everybody's getting their merchandise. This is the new one, God Wins Always. I wore this on a trip recently. I was traveling for a wedding and got a lot of compliments, so I made sure to spread the word and guide people towards the page, as well as the Instagram page. Everybody's liking the stuff that I'm putting out there. The show is a funnel for my creative energy, a way to hold myself accountability for things like faith and fitness and becoming a better man. Like I always say, I'm just grateful that God has allowed me to have the opportunity here to get in front of you. And I hope that he's working through this. If he's not now, then certainly in the future, because we'll just continue to be consistent in getting great content out there. With that, thank you again for listening, and here is the Stoic Christian. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Saved Show with your host, Justin, and I'm very happy to announce the part 2 of my episode with the Stoic Christian is finally here, and we actually have a surprise, a face reveal, so drink it in. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're both wearing our faith, as you can see.
Yes,
my
faith. My faith is the
Yeah.
church.
You've been wearing it longer than me.
It's been I started growing it out when I turned 30, so it's been 4 years. It'll be 5 years this year.
Beautiful. Don't ever stop.
I cut it. Like it doesn't. Yeah. It's not like continual growth.
You haven't seen your face. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen my face. I mean, I actually have had a beard for much longer than that, but it was always close to the face. I think the last time I was clean shaven was in 2013.
Yeah, a long time.
I don't know what my face looks like anymore.
I'm surprised my phone still recognizes, my Face ID, because 2017 was the last time it would have seen it, and still I can open it.
That's awesome.
But thanks for coming back, brother. Stoic Christian Part 1, I believe we spoke in September last time, is when I had you on, so it's been a full 6 months. Wanted to have you back just to check in how you're doing, and then I thought of some masculinity questions and topics that we could hopefully get through tonight. But yeah, what's going on with the page lately and your efforts? How is everything going?
Yeah, I kicked off we call a full blog recently, which is daunting, I guess I should say. As I may have mentioned in the last episode, I've been making content for a very long time, and a lot of that was blogging for early on in various depths. So I would have a personal blog, which is mostly just tech things that I have had to figure out myself and don't want to have to forget. So I write them there. And there has been times where I searched for a thing and I found my own blog for it, which is pretty hilarious.
Nice.
Like, yeah, I did that thing. I
Full circle.
my own blog post. And then some of those are long. I've written like blog posts for other platforms that were like 2,000 words long. I've written short things like there's a guy named Seth Godin. He writes very short blog posts, but every single day. I did that for some time, and so this blog, while not new to blogging, I write. I've been writing for a very long time. It's different because I feel a much heavier weight upon this, not burden so much, but like being wrong feels worse than being wrong about even like in tech, like if you're wrong, someone's gonna tell you you're wrong. But it just feels different when it comes to like biblical matters. Like I don't want to get this wrong and like lead a bunch of people astray. So it's been an interesting endeavor, but I've been doing that. I was doing that 3 days a week. Started out every day, and then always like could not keep that up. And so I started doing it Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in conjunction with Instagram. So Instagram was then suffering because I wasn't consistently uploading to Instagram every day. So now, those of you who are in the Ram's horn, as Instagram, as I
Yeah,
call it on Instagram,
sounds
um,
cool.
I as a poll, I put a poll up so that I could see like what everybody thought, and it sounds like everybody wants a daily Instagram content. Other people on Instagram want daily Instagram content
Yeah.
with blog posts twice a week, which I probably could swing that um, more easily. So I find myself with blog posts like I gotta write a blog post. Like I have to like write one for tomorrow. I haven't even started it yet. So like it's one of those things where I tend to like put it off for a while.
Mm.
Like, and I've always been this way, really. I tend to procrastinate until it's like, oh wow, this really needs to get done, because otherwise it's gonna be terrible if I like have to rush through this. Um, so I'll probably do some of that tonight, and then I'll do some early in the morning as well. Um, so I'm thinking what this is gonna be is gonna be separate from Instagram. Instagram's gonna be kind of more of a uh, light as in like depth, not very deep. The blog posts have always been deeper than the Instagram posts because it has to be. There's no way I can put all
Right.
that into Instagram posts. No one's going to read that. It'd be ridiculous. Um, it may or may not tie into an Instagram post. So the one tomorrow is going to be, because the Instagram post I wrote today was brand new. I have a new idea. Well, not a new idea, but a new idea for me,
Right.
and
Yeah.
to expound upon that idea.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I will repost things on Instagram. Um, as people may have noticed, I posted the thing about conquering loss more than one time already,
Yep.
because I get new followers on Instagram. They had not seen that content, so I repost it. It does just as well every time. Like, just people want to see it. They need that information.
And people need to
Um,
hear it.
yeah, just rehearing it probably helps too. I mean,
Sure.
I know like I go through it when I re-upload a post. I'm not like I don't. I need to always go back and look at it and read through it. It's like, is anything changed in my opinion on this topic?
Mm-hmm.
If so, update it. If not, just post it, or I make a tweak to it so it fits the same format. I change the format or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, as I'm learning, I will update those posts as well. So even though it's like it looks like it might be an exact copy, it usually isn't. Something's probably changed. Unless it's just like, wow, this is just spot on. I can't make it any better. Just whatever.
Nailed it.
Post it again. I plan on keeping those to. I will not post something more than once a month. So like the last thing I won't post again until at least, I don't know what's when, probably like the end of April or May.
Sure.
Just because it's like you don't want to like be redundant or whatever. So
Right.
I'm finding this cadence might be good. A little bit more freedom, because I also want to add in an audio form of something.
Yeah.
Be it a podcast, be it a like even if it's just like me reading, like talking about my posts from like the blog. I don't even know, but people have been asking me for a podcast. So I've been trying to think about how to put that put that together, along with everything else that's going on.
Yeah,
with a full-time job too, by the way.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. How do you have the time of day for everything? Because you've got your family and your normal 9 to 5, as well as everything that you've got going.
Yeah, it is just not much time, which is why I end up in situations like this where I have a blog post I'm gonna put out tomorrow and I haven't even read it yet.
Yeah.
Luckily, like my job is very, I don't know what the word would be, flexible. That's the word. Job is very flexible, and so like I can spend time, like a little bit of time here and there, in the morning or in the afternoon, and like write some stuff. No one's gonna care. I can literally leave my house and like not work for like an hour. No one's gonna care.
Nice.
As long as I'm performing, they're happy with it. And,
Sure.
That's how it's always been. And so I make sure I'm performing, doing a good job, writing code for a company, and everyone's happy with that. So that's flexibility there. And I tend to find that like with my job specifically, I can actually sit down and like for a chunk of like 4 hours and get a ton of work done if I focus on it. Whereas like the blog post takes a lot more effort than my job does, which sounds hilarious, right? Like writing a blog post is more mentally taxing on me than writing code and business logic for a company and their app that makes them like billions of dollars a year. So like It's just because I've been doing it for so long. It's just been a big hobby of mine. That's why now I get paid to do it, which is pretty cool. So I can have that time where it's like I'm gonna take a break from coding and like not write code right now, and I'm gonna spend like the next hour just like focus on this blog post and get some more done on it. So that flexibility is there for me, which is very
Yeah.
helpful. Um, Obviously, when it's family time, it's family time. I'm not like writing blog posts or working when it's family time, which is usually in the morning. When my kids get up, so I wake up about 6 in the morning. I might have to actually push it back because I've been running out of time,
Yep.
which means I have to sleep earlier. So I don't know. It's
Yep.
kind of like, eh. So I get
Trying
up
to
at 6 in
balance
the morning.
everything's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, get up at 6 in the morning, do my morning stuff. Kids get up at like 7 o'clock usually. The youngest one might get up earlier than that, depending on how he's feeling.
Sure.
Um, he's unpredictable, but he's been getting up at like 7 o'clock lately, which is pretty cool. So from 7 to 9, it's just me and the kids and my wife. She will be cooking the kids breakfast. I usually don't eat breakfast, and then once the kids don't eat breakfast, I have them until 9 o'clock. And
Nice.
she's out doing, well, she's in the house, but she's cleaning up the kitchen, eating her own food, and just
Yeah.
getting ready for her day as well. Then 9 o'clock comes in, somewhere around between 9 and 9:10. I'm on my work computer, signed in to work, signed into Slack to be available if I'm needed.
Nice.
Um, my evenings, then I also spend the evenings doing this stuff as well.
Yeah.
After the kids are asleep, so work's on at 5. I from 5 to bedtime, which is 7:30 ish,
That's not too
depending on
bad. Yeah.
when I want to fall asleep. That's just family time again. Includes dinner and bath time. It goes pretty quick, but
Yeah.
it's just what it is. And then after that, I do like I clean the kitchen for my wife so she can sit on the couch and relax. And
Good for
then
you.
once all those are done, I can sit down and do something. And
Yeah.
so my goal is to sit down and actually like write a blog post or like get a head start on something or make that post for Instagram.
Right.
But there's days where I'm just like I just can't even think straight right now.
Yeah.
And I end up just like watching a video or looking at Instagram posts, seeing if I want to repost anything on my stories, or just
Spend time with the
something.
wife if you guys have the time. Yeah.
Yeah. She likes watching some shows that like make me super anxious. So like she respects the fact that like I can't watch that stuff. Or I mean I could. I prefer not to. So she's
Sure.
very gracious with that. But we're literally like there's a wall, so I can just like shout to her or something. Um, yeah. For the wife and I, our date night, quote unquote, tends to be we're both very much homebodies. We don't really go anywhere. But our date night is sitting. We get takeout
Yep.
after the kids are in bed, and then
Mhm.
we sit on the couch and we watch diner drive-ins and dives.
Nice.
We
I
eat
love
our
it.
food and we just hang out on the couch and just relax.
Yep.
Which is
I get
typically
that.
needed because we're both extremely tired. So
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. My wife and I will do like grab some Culver's burgers after the kids are asleep, grab some ice cream if we feel like it, and just hang out on the couch.
yeah, one of my favorite takeouts is burgers and milkshakes.
Yeah.
It's just extremely unhealthy. It
Just classic. Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels good. It's like after a long week, just like burgers and milkshake.
Right. Well, that's cool. It sounds like you found some balance. And then for creating new stuff, not when you're reposting what you think is important, but when you're creating new stuff, you said last time we spoke that you have a log or a bunch of notes that you're reading and you're learning new things and you feel the inspiration. Is that still the case, or like with a blog post, do you need more than that for a starting point?
Usually I have to do some research because I'm in topics I might not have thought of before or read about. So the whole idea of like having a system set up that I am digital system, I have all my book notes, all my article notes, which have expanded on since we talked last. I know for a fact.
But
I don't know what we talked about back then or what I was using, but I know it's different now, or it's at least expanded now.
yeah, you fixed it.
No, I just refined it.
Sure, refined it.
Constant refinement. So I use an app called LogSeq, LOGSEQ.
Mm-hmm.
I say LogSeq. I think it stands for log sequence, but
That makes
even
sense.
even the people who make it don't really know what to call it. I don't know. It's an open source project, so some guys I was going to call it this, and now we're like, what we get?
Sure.
So it is. I think back when we last talked, I was using an app called Obsidian, which is the more popular app program to hold notes and things like that.
Yeah.
For my style, I found other programs to be better. It's very much like another program called Rome Research. Um, it looks almost identical. It's hilarious how close it is. Rome costs money. LogSeq's free unless you want to donate to developers. Um, and it's open source, so all their code's online. So anyone can go and look at it to make sure it's not like stealing stuff and all that
Yeah.
nonsense. Which I like about. I like that. Being a nerd, that's my thing. And so I use LogSeq. The reason why I use that now is because in Obsidian, every time I wanted to make so I make like very, I think the word is atomic note from the book How to Take Smart Notes, if I remember correctly. And so basically, like you need to boil down one single thought per note.
Mm-hmm.
So that and the idea is to write that in a way that you potentially could just pluck it out and put it somewhere and it would make sense. Like
Okay.
it needs to be its own single thought, no other context necessary to understand what you're trying to say in that thought. And so with and Obsidian, I had to make a new page for every single thought,
Got
and
it.
that got really annoying. it's like
I bet.
it's like I have like a billion pages now for every single individual thought. LogSeq, what I like about LogSeq is that it's an outliner, so it's
Okay.
all bolted, and so I can have like my book notes. Like here's a book. Oh, what was I reading recently? I read How Readest Thou by J.C. Ryle. Very elementary book by a lot of standards, but very good book nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Basically saying like, how do you read the Bible? Do you read the Bible? And here's reasons why you should if you don't. So like it was kind of like I think it was like his attempt to be like, hey, if you're not saved, you might want to get saved, and like here's all the reasons why this Bible is such a cool book.
Yeah.
So nothing super profound for a lot of Christians or people like who spend a lot of time like you and I thinking about the faith, but it's still good to read. So I have a bunch of notes from that book, and I have it all. I have a page for that book, and that book has all the bullet points. And what I love about LogSeq is that I can literally tag every individual bullet with a tag or a topic. So let's say that there's a post about, or I have a thought, a note about, written in my own words, by the way, always do that. What was that? It was prayer. Let's say here we're talking about prayer. So I tagged it prayer. So if I'm writing a post about prayer, I'm just like, oh, like this is, or I think about like, this has a relation to a prayer. I can go into LogSeq, search for that page, that that tag prayer, and in the sidebar, it'll show me every single bullet point that I ever have tagged with the word prayer.
Nice.
Which is much more efficient for me. So for me, it just makes more sense to use LogSeq. It makes my work feel better. There's that, and then I also added in web articles because I found that I was reading a lot of things online as well, and I wasn't capturing that information, or at least easily. So what I started doing was using a Read It Later app, not an app called Read It Later, but there's these apps that you can send a link to. Like here's an article online, I send it to this app. The app like makes it like not suck to read, and then you can usually highlight in the app and annotate it.
That's cool.
So I've been doing that. I use an app called Omnivore.
Omnivore.
Omnivore.app is the website. That's what I've been using because I can synchronize it with LogSeq, and I can just like push the button. This all just dumps into LogSeq. And so if I am usually if I'm like in a situation where like I might have to get up and get the kids or whatever, like in the morning, or like they're like out playing and like doing their own thing. I'm just like sitting here bored. I might open up and like start reading something a little bit. Unless I'm reading. So in those situations, I don't really take my own notes while I'm reading it. I just highlight and like come back to it, which is less than ideal because I have to go back and think about it again. I could just think about it one time and just get it in there.
Yeah.
So ideally, if I'm like, if it's at night and I'm just like, I can't write a blog post, I'm just gonna read something. I pull up my phone, I open up that app, and I'll pick a blog post I had saved in there from who knows when. And the idea is to like highlight it, tap the annotation button, type that idea, that thought in my own words. Sometimes I expound, sometimes I don't. Mm-hmm. And then if I'm really thinking, really want to think about it, I also tag it right then and there too. I can just put a hashtag in a word.
Yeah.
LogSeq just knows that format is a tag. And so it's just like I push the import button into LogSeq. It is all there, already tagged. I don't have to think about it at all.
Cool.
That's super nice.
I like, I think we did this last time on the part one, I think I'll call it, just kind of nerding out on content creation and your process. And
I find it fascinating. I was with me and the page, I make reels nearly 100% of the time. And Cole from Christus Rex, his page, he was like, "Man, you got to make me a video on how to make a good reel." And so I got everything ready. I hit screen record on my phone, pretty easy to walk through a process of making a reel. And then I went back and added the audio file of my voiceover. And so I was technically showing him how to make a reel, and then I went back on Instagram and made a reel with the voiceover and everything, and then I downloaded it and sent it to him. But I might be doing that more often now because for my own insight, just like what you're talking about, where you've created a blog of technical things that you've solved in the past and you wanted to write it down so you didn't forget. I might start doing that too, because he might want something else, or somebody might ask me, how do you make this kind of reel? Or, in 2 months, I might forget how I did a certain trick. So I think sharing the knowledge and the skill that you've created with the page could be a worthwhile investment if you had, just that much more time in your day after everything else.
Yeah. For a lot of like recall, like I have LogSeq for all my personal stuff and
Mm.
the Stoic Christian stuff, and then I have a separate LogSeq database for work on my work computer.
Yeah.
They were all combined, and then I thought to myself one day, there could be like some intellectual property from like work, and I probably shouldn't mix that. So it's kind of a pain now because I have like
Yeah.
two different LogSeq apps. So it's like if I'm working, I have a cool idea for Stoic Christian. I have to like get my phone out and like type it there instead of just like typing it in the one that was already open in front of
Yep.
my face.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned about like I said like writing blog posts, so I don't want to forget it. That was before I even had the system in place to like take notes.
Gotcha.
So like specifically, I'm using work as an example because that's a technical thing.
Yeah.
If I do something, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget this. I 100% know I'm gonna forget this. I will put it in LogSeq and do my very best to think how should I tag this so that when I'm looking for this again, I'm gonna find it. So I know I'm gonna forget it, but I'm gonna have something in my mind that's gonna remind me of I did that one thing that one time.
Yep.
How do I find it again? Uh, like LogSeq because like when you search, it searches tags and pages, but also searches like the actual text that you wrote.
Yeah.
So like I'll probably find it. I'm adding more context through tags and links to
Yeah.
find it more efficiently. So that's what I've been doing now to like find things that I had done. And then also in that regard, you mentioned like sharing my process. That's something that I kind of alluded to with the elite group. That I need to fix that up. The fellowship name is awful. I think everyone gets the wrong idea with that name.
Oh, okay.
I think because the what the group's supposed to be is like a bunch of guys working on themselves biblically and supporting each other, and not like a fellowship group thing that you would find at like a church necessarily. Like it's
Sure.
Christian based, but like when I think of fellowship, my brain's like I'm gonna go eat like a potluck or something. Like I don't know. I think there's a disconnect with the name and
Okay.
what the idea is. The idea is
Yeah.
to like help men be men, and like let's all try to be men together. Let's start acting like men, like the Bible tells us to do, and let's just support each other. So I make sure I put it like someone new joins, I say, read the pinned messages. Some of those messages literally says, you will get out what you put into this, like
Yeah.
100%. Because I don't want people like joining and being like, oh, I'm paying $10 a month, which this is my way of like supplanting Patreon because I guess I don't have to do that, but
Yeah.
don't want to like rely on Patreon. And if they decide like, oh, you know what, we don't like Christians anymore, we're gonna kick you all out.
Right.
This is kind of silly. So like this is like my way of doing it, which is harder in the long run because I have to like do a lot more work up front and whatever. People have to trust the fact that like they're putting their credit card into some random website.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hassle. But
Yeah.
I think that's a disconnect there. But in that group, there's that another tier that was like more per month, and the idea with that was more one-on-one help. And I specifically call out in that like upgrade page like building an online business, like
Yeah.
Instagram content, blog content, and that kind of stuff, to where I would share those insights on a one-on-one basis with people.
Sure.
No one has taken up on that yet. So I don't know.
Well, maybe
People have literally paid $30 a month to be part of that elite group, and they literally do nothing. So I'm like,
oh, well,
okay,
maybe after they listen to this, they'll hit you up.
I hope so.
Get
But yeah,
another
I'm
big
trying
page
to
on the way.
refine that too, because
Yeah.
uh, right now there's like a weird disconnect, and I don't know what to do about that. I made a membership site where all the courses I make, which are usually like around like note taking, journaling, knowledge management, stuff that I find helpful for me to
Mm.
further my understanding of God's word and as studying and all that stuff, and just what has made me more productive, more efficient, more fruitful. Um, I share that. I'm making those things to share that, so I'm putting it all on this website now, which I might move it somewhere else because I mean, right now it's all like my own like coding,
Yeah.
which is fun. But I'm not a front end designer, and so it doesn't look super fancy. So
Sure.
the problem with going to something that looks fancy is it's going to cost me a lot more money.
Yeah.
And so there's like this overhead. So like people are in the fellowship, and it is that Patreon alternative, and all that money does go back into making this cool stuff. So I have to figure out, is it going to be worth the money to go to a place that I know looks nice and it'd be probably more user friendly than what I have, um, but it's going to be a much higher overhead to what the group has, and there's going to be a give or take. So the sharing of the content, at the end of the day, what I'm getting at is that it will all be in those places mostly. Some of it's going to be for everybody. Some will be for the people who had that elite membership, or I could just change it all and just be like, whatever. Let's just like
Take it if you want it.
Yeah, take it if you want it. Which I do sometimes. Just like, oh, whatever.
Well, to that end, on helping men become better men and becoming more biblical men, I did have some questions for you to guide us in that route. I think it was November. Maybe we had a collaborative reel that we put together that got a lot of views. It was my first instance of going viral to that extent. And in there we had what do we have? We had preside, protect, provide, and ponder. Or no, perform. We had all the P words that you could really find in the dictionary.
We had the 3 from something I did once, and you added a 4th one in there.
Yeah, added perform, I think. And so I was just going to start. Do you have any further thoughts on the P words that we had chosen, or any new ones that you would put in there for biblical traits or characteristics of men that you've learned since then? Anything that you wanted to share here tonight?
Well, there's a lot of things that I have come across just from reading books and such. If it's a P word, I don't really know.
Yeah, I'll find a simile to whatever you said. Synonym, forgive me.
So, I read a book called The Manliness of Christ, written by Dale Partridge. He is the guy who runs or owns relearn.org. It is I don't know, they sell stuff. I would say like a publishing company, maybe.
Oh, okay.
They make content. It's Christian content. I think it's reformed Christian content.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it right now.
Read his book. He actually reached out to me last week. I was like, "Hey, you want my book?" I was like, "Oh, I already have it." It's great.
That's cool. That's cool that they reached out.
He's sending it to me for free and for like to promote it. And I was like, I already promoted it, man. Like I tell everyone to buy it. It's great. So I'm friends with Dale Partridge now, apparently. But like in that book, there's a lot of insights in there that it's a very short book, by the way. So everyone needs to go buy it. It's like $10. It's totally worth your money.
Yeah.
Best $10 you'll spend on biblical masculinity. And he's actually revising it now. He's updating it. He said there's so far as 25 new pages to the second edition he's putting out.
Oh, nice.
So maybe wait until he puts it out. Anyway, in that book, there's a lot of interesting ideas he puts out. So he does make sure to say in that book, this is not this is a response to another book that is everything that Christ is, but not his masculinity.
Okay.
It's like the gentle. I don't know what the book was called. It's not the gentleness of Christ, but like something like that. Like gentle is not necessarily a feminine trait, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he has this book where it's like, here's the manliness of Christ. He goes up saying like, by default, like this is not like the whole picture of Christ. Like he is very gentle to his sheep, but this is his manliness, and this is what we should model our manliness after. And one thing that I have really like really stuck with me after reading that book was, um, he's talking about Christ going into Jerusalem fully knowing he is going to be crucified. And like think about from our perspective as men, just like human men, no, definitely not fully God, that kind of thing. If you know if you go into the next city, they're going to kill you. Like, are you gonna go? Like, probably not. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to go and be tortured. Like, this is not a thing. I'd go somewhere else. Like, but he literally in I wish I remember what chapter of the Bible it was, but he literally turns to his disciple and says, "We go to Jerusalem." And he leads them into Jerusalem. Like he's the one that goes in first. And it's like that is masculinity. That is manliness at its core. Like doing a thing that you have to do, you know you have to do for certain reasons, even though like you very certainly do not want to do that thing. Like I can guarantee you, like we can probably guarantee that his flesh fought every second of that because he had a human fleshly body, yet he was sinless because he was able to resist the temptation of his flesh entirely. So like being fully man and fully God, he had to be tempted with that desire to not go. His flesh probably did not want to go because his flesh is fleshliness. Like it wants to like be safe and comfortable and like,
survive.
Eat potato chips on the couch all day. Like,
right.
like, and so the fact like reading that and just picturing that like maybe even putting ourselves in that scenario in that role like fully knowing that like we have to go over there, thing needs to be done, and we're gonna be tortured and killed when we go there. At the end of it all, and still saying to everyone who's following us, depending on us, we're going up there. I mean, that's like it gives me chills when I think about it. Like it's so whatever that word is, I don't know. If I think he gives it a word in the book. I don't know what it is though. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that is something that I have I have since realized, or because like we read that, like it's in the Bible, it's there. Like it's like every Easter you hear about this. Like he goes there and does it. It's like, but something about the way Dale put it, like in a manliness aspect, like it just made a world of difference in my understanding of what was he actually doing. Like, it was huge. So I would encourage people to like the Bible says to act like men. And King James, that's why I read. It says, "Quit you like men," which literally just means act like men.
Yeah.
And why is that? Well, if Christ is the ultimate, if Christ is the ultimate picture of manliness, we have to act like that because we don't by default want to be that. Like we're sinful fallen creatures. Our flesh doesn't want to do the things that would make you a man, make you manly, because it's hard and it's uncomfortable. And so it's just I find it hilarious that Paul just tells us to act like it because we're not going to want to do it anyway. So just act like a man.
Act like a man. Yeah. Like the Godfather. What's the matter with you? You're gonna act like a man.
Yeah, exactly. And it pushes this idea as like the default is to not act like a man.
Yeah. I think it's timely that's what stuck out to you because when this comes out, it should be Monday right after Palm Sunday. So Easter week is upon us already. And as we read to further go through the idea that Dale puts in that book, and I'll have to read it now. I'm convinced. When in the garden the night before his crucifixion, he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and I think I'm saying that right. He weeps blood, and that's a real like human body flesh condition where you're so stressed and you're so anxious about something that your body literally you weep blood because of that stress, all that anxiety.
Is that sweating blood? Is that what it?
Or sweating. Sorry.
Okay.
Not weep.
I didn't know if weep was another way to say sweating.
No,
so I just want to make sure
it's definitely
I didn't misread the passage.
That's what I was thinking. It was
cool.
just didn't come out through my mouth.
Yeah, that's wild, isn't it?
Sweating blood. I can't imagine having that much anxiety built up for something that I know I have to do. And to your point, I think that spells duty. I'm not sure what the author considered that, but I think that's duty. Being a man, knowing what you need to do.
I don't remember. I had the book. Wait, I gave it to my father-in-law. I think he still has it. well,
You can find it.
I could probably find my notes and look it up. Like I have it in log, so you can just look it up.
Yeah, we don't have to. I think he's made a good point, and that's why I'm interested to read the book. I think what Dale was mentioning with Christ heading into Jerusalem, although his flesh doesn't want him to. I think to me the word that comes to mind is duty, um, a moral or legal obligation or responsibility. But to me, it feels like more than that. Like as a man, I have a duty to my family to provide and to
Yeah,
protect them, defend them. And Christ, his duty, his mission here on earth, if you want to call it that, was our salvation. And I think you had a good point. His entire flesh, since he was both uh, God and man, his flesh had to have been tempting him to some degree. And if it's anything that I would have experienced, it must have been overwhelming.
yeah, yeah. Um, you mentioned the, uh, the blood too, and I think about my own maybe petty stress in life, where like yeah, it makes me irritable, gets my temper short, or I'm not slow to anger, and I'll get like knots in my shoulders and tension headaches. It's like he has so much stress and anxiety and whatever other words you want to add into there that we call things, that he's like literally sweating blood. Like I can't even fathom like how much that is, because I've always never been that stressed out or
Mm-hmm.
that anxious or whatever the right word is for that. Even though I do have symptoms of stressfulness on life, just living life, you get stressed. Being a man, and you being a married man with kids, like there's stress involved because you have to provide, and if needed, you have to protect, which you all have to protect. But I mean, I was thinking physically protect, but there's also protecting them spiritually,
Mm.
and protecting their young minds from, because they're very easily molded, and make sure that they're protected from um, maybe just say the evils out there that want to mold them in that way instead. There's a lot of protection that has to happen. There's a lot of providing that has to happen, like in these pieces we talked about, and that adds stress to a man's life, um, because it's stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we're like you and I aren't sweating blood and we're pretty stressed out, I'm sure. Like just by living life, there's some stress in there.
Yeah.
Um, like it's a whole other level, and like I mentioned, like he still went,
Mm-hmm.
he still went, and that's not an act of manliness. Like I don't know what it is. It's
Yeah.
just the epitome of manliness.
Yeah. And it
Fulfilling the duty.
fulfilling your duty. Yeah, yeah. And one of the shirts that I put together, and I have fun with the designs and everything. I wear my stuff most days of the week now since I've collected so many. But the one that's my favorite is this shirt. It's if you have seen it, it's a cross and it says "Not eager, forever willing." And to me, that's not duty or a buzzword or anything, and you kind of have to explain what I mean by that. But that's what I was thinking of is Christ in the garden the night before his crucifixion, or heading into Jerusalem, knowing what's going to happen. He wasn't eager for his fate or what had to happen, but he was always willing to do that for us. And so us as men, we don't have to be eager to go to work. I'm in sales. I don't have to wake up, jump out of bed, and necessarily be eager to hop on the phone. But I always have to be willing to do that because, like you said, that's how I provide for my family. Providing and taking care of them, especially now with inflation and the economy and everything going on. That's a way to protect them and take care of everybody that I've got. And that's one example. I don't have to go to war anymore, as it were, like I was in the Marine Corps. But that shirt means a lot to me. And it's crazy that we're talking about it right now.
Yeah,
Hadn't even occurred to me.
it's good. Yeah, good how things all fit together like that. I like that you mentioned, but like providing is protecting, so in some regards, because if you don't provide for your family, then they're not gonna have like proper shelter. They're not gonna have proper food. They're gonna rely on somebody else, likely the state, and the state's gonna want them molded a certain way. The state wants them molded, which is chances are good it'll be contradictory to what the Bible wants it to be,
Right.
and what we as Christian men would want our kids to be, at least in this day and age, for where you and I both live. And so like I think it's interesting that he mentioned that, because like these P's that we've mentioned in that reel kind of all intertwine.
Mhm.
It's all part of the same thing. It's all part of being a man. They all touch each other in some regards.
Mhm.
And I was also thinking that even if if I wasn't providing, my wife would have to. And if she's not home raising the kids, providing, and then she's out there providing, then they're separate. We're not separate,
Mhm.
which means our kids. And if I'm, maybe I'm, who knows what I'd be doing? Like I'm staying home, being a stay-at-home dad, which is kind of weird, but I don't really know like what else I'd do. Like go somewhere else.
Right.
But it's like a separation. I heard recently that there's a like forcing women to work, separate them in the family, and then the kids have to go somewhere else to get to the dad's working, the mom's working, the kids are somewhere else. The family's all split up. So the family unit, which is a very core concept biblically, like God created the family. He didn't create a government, but He created the family first. And when you destroy that, that is the foundation of society, of a good society, especially if it's a biblical family. It's where you get the goodness from. If you destroy that foundation, because the man's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, or he's putting some of his duties on the woman.
Mhm.
She has to go out also provide now. So the kids are somewhere else. They're getting indoctrinated by somebody else. They're being molded by a different person who wants them to be what they want them to be. So the father's now not only making the wife help to provide, he's also not protecting his kids anymore from the stuff that they probably should not be hearing in their young minds that are being molded.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, you can see how that stems into modern society, and where we've been.
Yeah. Well, I like that you use the word indoctrinate, because most people would say, that's a bad thing. Why are we saying the Pledge of Allegiance? That's indoctrination, or even worse examples. But what's another word? Discrimination. That's one that you think just has a negative connotation. But anytime you choose one option over another, you're discriminating against that first option. So it's just the language that we use is so powerful. And it's nice to hear that you're using what I would agree to be the right term for what we need in society.
Yeah, I have been trying to use. I mean, that's not a biblical term, I guess, but I've been trying to use the correct terms, biblical terms for things. A now friend of mine goes by the name of Post Militant on Instagram.
Solid guy. He's from around here, actually.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
Cool. I talked to him a bunch. He talking about like my temper's been short like out of nowhere. Like for like the last 6 months, I've always been like a really extremely chill guy, and like never lost my temper. And I've always been slow to anger. Like the Bible says that word, slow to anger. And so all of a sudden, like recently, I've been like having to like really pay attention and like try and rein it back. I don't know what's happening with that, but I told him that, and he said like if in anger you say something that you shouldn't say, or whatever the sin is, not even just anger but just period, he's like sin is, confess that sin to whoever you sinned against, but use the Bible word for that sin.
Okay.
He said don't use modern terminology, because usually, and I think this relates to a post I made a while back before he mentioned this to me, where I said like I reposted it recently about like not using degenerate language.
Yep.
And saying like, and I think in the new post I had changed some things and updated a little bit and added like these new terms watered down the severity of the sin. Right, like that was supposed to be slow to anger, so like short tempered, let's say it's whatever. But if we're thinking about like, I had to go on my tongue right, I just lost it. But like, let's say like anxiety, right? Well, that's not what you're doing is you're not casting all your cares upon God. Which, if you're not doing that, is that a sin? Maybe. I mean, God commands us to do that, so I guess it'd be considered a sin. But there's a lot of words out there. I mean, we can get into there's like obviously the obvious ones that I'm not going to just like utter on this podcast just in case it's like some platform doesn't like to hear those words.
Yeah.
But we all know those words, and that they're a softer version of what God had called it. And I think having the correct terms puts in the correct light, and confessing that correct term, it 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 feels weird because it's like, wow, this is like really kind of bad. Like, oh, I'm sorry, sorry, like when I'm gonna say like, I said something I shouldn't have said or whatever, but like, no, I didn't control my tongue or whatever the thing would be. Right? I'm trying to think one off my head that has nothing to do with what I posted about, so I can't think of one. But it's the same idea, and he told me that, and it's like it's very true. And so I've been very mindful of like using those words even outside of that, and I was mindful of that even before that. But he made me more aware of it, and like we brought it to my attention, which is why I reposted it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we as Christians, Christian men, need to stop using the pagan terminology for things that God had already defined. Right. Like if God's called it something, then call it that thing. Don't let them redefine it. And this is why if you ever read my blog posts, you'll see that when I look up a word, I use the Webster's 1828 dictionary because it's more than likely not corrupted by modern by modern ideologies.
Yeah.
Like the word dinosaur is not in that dictionary because the word didn't exist in 1928.
Interesting.
It was dragon.
It's way back.
Yeah. They call them dragons. Huh. And there's a bunch of things like that words don't exist. Like the word evolution is not in that book.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't exist. Or if it is, okay, I shouldn't say that because I don't know for sure. But if it is, it doesn't have anything to do with animals by any means, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of times we'll be like, oh, let's look up a word, and it's usually there because like English is a pretty big language, and there's a lot of words in there. But I have noticed there's differences between definitions because obviously words also change over time. So this dictionary written by Noah Webster, who was a Christian man, and in his dictionary he actually put example words, like these words, the example sentences they put in dictionaries. Yeah. He pulled them from the Bible.
Oh, nice.
So this is what the Bible says, and I think it was in the King James because I think it's all he really had back then or something like that. So it's like, here's this word is what it means. Here's what's used in the sentence. Like this word means this because this is what the Bible says it means. And
total Chad move.
Oh yeah. And so if anyone out there is like, why do you keep using this old dictionary? Like that's why, because the words, I use the King James Bible, and so the words back then sometimes mean different things than they do now. A big one is the word let, L-E-T. In the King James, that could literally mean to hinder somebody. The exact opposite of what we think it means now. Like, I'm going to let you do that. It's like, okay, go ahead. It's like, no, I'm going to keep you from doing it. Yeah. And it's a big deal. So I along the lines of that, like, be careful of if you're using a word, make sure it's not watering down God's law, or watering down sin. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking up a word, like use something old because chances are it's written by a Christian anyway. Right. And so you're gonna have Christian undertones on it, and you're gonna see, this word in a Christian context, especially the Webster's 1820 dictionary.
Yeah.
It uses
Bible
verses.
I need to grab a copy.
It's free online.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just look it up.
Webster1828.com, I think it is. Webster's Dictionary 1828, and you can just like search for words there.
I like it.
Anyone with Android devices, they have apps too, but I just use this open source Bible app called, I think it's called A&D Bible, I don't remember. But anyway, in this app, you can add documents, like different versions of the Bible, but you can also add dictionaries. And one of them is Webster's 1820 dictionary. And cool. It's free. It's out of copyright. So you guys look up words. It's been super helpful for me, especially as a guy who reads the King James. There's a word like, I think I know what that word means, but like I'm not really sure if my understanding of that is right. And then I've been surprised how many times I just assumed what a word meant and it did not mean that thing.
Yep.
I know examples, but I've surprised myself many times.
Yeah. No, I do that in conversation with my wife. I'll say, something superfluous. I know what that word actually means, but just for an example, that's superfluous. And she's like, I don't think that's what that means. And lo and behold, I'm wrong.
Sure enough.
Yeah. But to go back, I think you said being slow to anger. This isn't as good advice as Post-Militant mentioned to you, but I heard it once from Andrew Clavin on the Daily Wire that anger is the devil's cocaine. So if that helps you at all, it helps me. Just thinking about, I've met people with drug addictions and certain qualities like that. So if I think of the devil enjoying my anger and my short temper. If I'm feeding him that cocaine, and that's just, he's going to want more of it. That spiritual warfare aspect just helps me to keep things in check.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know like there is a such thing as righteous judgment, but I think when it comes to uh, short-temperedness, it usually isn't because there has to be a very specific reason for that. I believe. Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we people. This is another thing. Manliness of Christ. I think it's in the book, but like just in this example, we the church has been very has pushed this very weak, effeminate Christ. Um, and while he's not feminine, he's a man, he's a physical man. Um, he is very gentle to his sheep,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's this gentleness, this lovingness. It's like, but they're also forgetting the part where he walked into the temple and flipped over tables and cracked a whip. Like he was extremely angry there. And I'm sure it was probably very terrifying for people in that room, having this guy walk around flipping the whip around, flipping over tables, and like yelling and screaming about stuff. Like, and so if you think Christ was angry there, I think that's a true statement. But his anger was righteous anger. He wasn't sinning in his anger. And I think there's a very fine line there that I don't think. I think it's probably better just to like err on not being angry or trying to keep it back because otherwise it'll probably be unrighteous anyway.
Yeah,
Because it's the way it is for like human fleshly nature. But yeah, I'm glad we talked about that because there's another thing that we all think it's missed in I'll call it modern Christianity for lack of a better terminology.
Yeah. Well, modern Christianity, and maybe this is a good topic to sort of end our time together. Modern Christianity weakens Christ, like you said. He's more egalitarian. He's weak. He's effeminate. One of the things that I've looked up in the past is the distance that Christ dragged the cross and underwent his torture. And you look at it, and forgive me, I don't remember, but I believe it was like a half mile to a mile. And you and I could probably go walk a mile and we'd be fine. But then I looked up how much weight the cross would have had at the time, and I think it was about 150 to 200 pounds. Again, I'll have to look all this up to double check. But you think dragging for a half mile 200 pounds after been beaten and I'm being whipped, and as far as my mentality goes, people are hurling insults at me. I'm being betrayed by my friends. That takes a person of strong will, someone who's overcome their flesh quite literally to put the body through all that. That doesn't sound to me as the man that the modern church paints Christ to be. That's an extremely manly man. Strength, leadership, sacrifice, duty, like we talked about, and paying the ultimate price at the end of the day, to save all of us. It's just it makes me sad to think of what the church paints Christ as at times.
Yeah, I think that's partly why Dale wrote the book. It's just the modern Christianity has seemed to ignore the manly aspect of it, um, of Christ. Forgive me. Um, there's just so many things like that is a great example of it. Just so much strength, but maybe not even necessarily like physical, because like maybe 200 pounds is gonna be fine. But the fact that like he was beaten and whipped, so like I've seen some pictures of like people like thinking like what would it have the extent of which would have gone through, and like they remodeled like what his back could have looked like. Like is like you probably could have saw the guy's bones, like, and so that much pain, that much torment, that like mental anguish, and then you're carrying this thing when your back's ripped open. Um, it's all like physical strength, but like mental strength and determination to actually do it. Um, I mean, I guess regardless, he could have just fell down and just gave up, and like you probably would have just picked him up and took him there anyway. But it wouldn't have showed like he doing the job he came to do, no matter how difficult that job was for him to accomplish, as in a fleshly standpoint at least. Obviously, as God, it wasn't difficult because he's God. But they take that idea. I think the problem is they take the idea of like how loving he was. It's like, yeah, like of course it's a loving thing to do, but it's not the love that he's often portrayed, or I almost said the word pimped. Pimped up. There's this whole like daddy God idea, and while yeah, God the Father is a thing, he is a father. Like Christ is the part of God. Now, of course, Trinity stuff's hard, but let's just say like he's the King. He is the Lord. He is our King. He is our Lord. We are his subjects. And so the relationship between the triune being of God is there is a father relationship, which is God the Father, which we pray to through the name of Jesus, because he's the final sacrifice for our sins.
Mm.
But then Christ is our King. He tells us what to do. He gives us the commands to do. He gave us the Great Commission, and we have to fulfill that. And that's a different kind of love. That's not a fatherly love. That's a love of like, it's a duty kind of thing. I don't know if there's what the word would be for that, but it's like we've used this word duty a lot. Like if I would say like I would love my king, because like you would do the things for the king, because he's a good king, and you love the fact that he's a good king, and he's good to his subjects, and you go out and you do the things that he asks you to do.
Right. There's
I
fealty. Fealty is a good word for that. Like loyalty. There's camaraderie. Trying to think like how I would look at a relationship with a king. But sorry, you can keep going. Yeah.
Well, no, it's great. I didn't have the words for that, but it's like it's a different kind of love from my understanding, how I understand it right now. You know, God the Father, we go to Him. All our cares, all our anxieties, all the pressures of the world, like everything, we can just vent it and dump it, and He will listen and He will care, and because He is our Father in heaven, like it's like way better than any earthly father. But when it comes to Christ, like I said, He's our King. He is our King, and we have to act like that, and not so much like He's
our boyfriend.
Yeah, our boyfriend. I was thinking that, but I'm like, is that the right word to say? It is, because you listen to a lot of kind of music, and it's like, am I singing about my girlfriend? Am I singing about Jesus right now?
Right.
I'm not really sure. And like, I don't think that's the right type of love to have, like, for God as the figure of Christ, or God, that part of God.
Right, it's part of the triune. Yeah.
It's really hard to say that and not be a heretic, I guess. Like, not be like, because there's a lot of problems with like separating them out and they're together. And
right.
Well, we can just say thank you, St. Patrick, for saying like it's a mystery, and we'll just move on with that.
Right.
But we have relationships with the persons of God, and it's the person of Christ is different relationship than the person of the Father and the person of the Spirit.
Sure. Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, we skipped over Gnosticism, I think, earlier in the conversation. That would have been a different rabbit hole to go down. I can't remember when, but I remember thinking the physical and the spiritual being bad or good, or I don't remember that. But maybe we do Gnosticism next time. That could be fun.
That'd be good, because it's something I have come across. I think Redeemed Zoomer just put a post out about Gnosticism.
Yeah, I saw it today. That's why it's top of mind.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's all I'll say too. How it's crept into the church. I think he did a good job on that post. So if people want to look at that, go to see his post. A good primer on it. Something I do want to dig into as well, because it's changed a lot of things about what people consider Christianity. I think that caused a lot of problems. Getting back to like the historical roots. In my case, it's like Reformed theology of John Knox, John Calvin, those guys. Partly because like I have very strong Irish and Scottish heritage, as well as German. So like it's just Reformation is my blood.
Yeah.
But
mine's mostly German, but I do have Scottish and Irish, so we're close.
Yeah, we're very close. And so I think there's a lot that has to be said along those lines, because the old faith, the original faith, didn't have that, and even like. And I think in his post, James Zoomer, it's like this stuff was like rejected as heresy in the first century.
Right. Yeah.
We should be way past all of that nonsense. But why is it still a thing? Why is it still a thing? Why did it become a thing again? And so, we talk about that, because something that I do want to focus on is that the idea, not necessarily that, but the idea of like these people in the past, like John Knox, John Calvin, like they did, especially John Knox and like the covenanting stuff, like they literally made kings submit to God, to God Christ's commands. Like they made the king submit. It's like that is glorious. It's like we need that kind of energy.
Right.
And I don't. But the problem is we don't get that kind of energy without that kind of theology. So
Right.
um, that's a good topic we should talk about next time for sure.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. More so from current events. I don't know. I'll just say it. Gnosticism comes to mind when I learn more about the transgender movement in the country. How there's the physical is bad. It's not what you were meant to be. It's all about your spiritual form. Sort of this Gnostic dualism aspect. And like in his post, he said, we've already done this heresy. Get it out of here. Forget about this stuff.
Yeah, it's the fact that like that transgenderism in the church is crazy in of itself. But that's an extreme example because like that's secular Gnostics. They don't even have
right.
They don't even. Well, I mean,
they
Christians claim
like you and I can
have Christ.
Yeah, you and I can speak the language of Gnosticism and everything, but when it comes to someone who might be going through whatever they're going through with the transgender movement, they don't have the language to speak how they're feeling, even though you and I could describe it. I think quite adequately.
Yeah, I think that's a different thing because like you think about the pagan secular world, they don't have any focus on, well, I'll just call it biblical theology. They don't have any focus on the things of God. Their mind's not on God. They're not meditating on God's word as He commands people to do. And so I think one more thing for manliness: if you are, all men should strive to become husbands and fathers, because that's part of our duty. You don't have to be like Paul didn't, but like you should, and you should use that as you should be time preparing for that. You should be doing the things to prepare yourself for that part of your manliness of your life, and part of that is training up your children to be able to see the ridiculousness that is the pagan culture. It's so obvious whenever you just pay attention a little bit to what God says. It doesn't take much effort to notice how far gone things have become. And so it gets back to indoctrination that we talked about earlier in the beginning of the podcast. Like, if you don't indoctrinate your children, someone else is going to.
Right.
The word seems bad, but it's not, because they're going to get indoctrinated somewhere. It's either going to be you for Christ, or it's going to be them for the enemy.
Right. Well, that's a great spot to end, I think, brother. We covered duty, I think, is probably the theme of the night, and I think that's timely, like I said, with Easter weekend coming up and reflecting on Christ's experience. And then at the end, we got a little flavor and a taste of part 3. We can cover Gnosticism. I got to study up so I can keep up with you, but it'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, it'll be good.
All right. Is there any parting words or anything you want people to see next from the Stoic Christian page?
Keep an eye out for any podcast that happens. I want it to happen. Just gotta figure out how it's gonna happen. If you are the kind of person who likes to read and get a little bit more meat out of the topics I post, the blog is just blog. I think it's blog.thestoicchristian.com. It's a Substack blog. I just use that domain name. And so there you'll get a little more depth into topics. These topics are typically have something to do lightly with Instagram. They might change, but if you want to get more information, more deep on topics, go there. And then Instagram is just a place if you want something quick and easy to digest. Or even if you want your feed filled with this kind of information, that's what you should do that.
Yep.
Follow Instagram. And then, of course, if you have any questions about who else to follow, ask me, ask Justin.
Yeah.
He knows too.
Oh yeah, we got quite the crew that we've collected the past year, I think. Well, you've got the Post Militia, you got a bunch of guys in there, and I just happened to talk with these guys. I've been lucky enough to cross paths. So
yeah, hopefully something gets off the ground. I have some cool plans. Like I want to make a video game that's centered around like a Christian's pilgrimage. I guess like
Sure.
Pilgrim's Progress. It won't be like Xbox person, but it'll be like a text-based RPG game.
Oh, nice.
It's a cool idea. I don't know if I'll ever do it. It's gonna be a lot of work that I don't have time for,
Yeah.
but it sounds
I,
fun.
I think it'd be cool to do like a Assassin's Creed style game, not killing people obviously, but Jonah's experience where you're rushing away from God. Somehow, you're caught up in a whale. Just go through everything, but from an Assassin's Creed type of gameplay. I think that'd be pretty cool.
There was an old game I played on Game Boy back in like the '90s. It was called, I think it was called Spiritual Warfare, and it was like an old Legend of Zelda style game. But you would throw apples at people, at the evil guys, and they turned into angels.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, if only it was that easy.
The blog. You go to the blog if you want more information, and
Cool.
if you just Instagram is where most of the action is when it comes to like sharing stuff and talking about sharing other accounts that you might want to find. I put stuff on my pages, so if you see a post on my story, tap the story or tap the post in the story and go to that page and check it out and probably follow them because they're should be decent or at least funny. I like that stuff too.
Yeah, you only share good stuff. I'll vouch
I
for
hope
it.
so.
All right. Well, thanks, brother. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, pleasure.
Till next time.
All right, everyone. Stoic Christian out. Thankful for the face reveal today. It's a lot of trust. Very, very high valued friend and teammate in this effort that we've both taken on in the last year to further Christ's kingdom. Heavy influence from him, and I'm very grateful for the friendship there. I hope you got something out of the discussion. These guest episodes tend to be a little bit longer, so I'm thankful that you're still listening to this. Don't want to keep you any longer than you need. I listen to things at 3 times the speed, so that's how I get through longer episodes like the Joe Rogan Show. I don't know if you're doing that too. Let me know. As we head into Easter week, I hope you are reflecting on Christ's sacrifice and what it took for our salvation. At the end of the show, I say we are saved through Christ, and that really hits home this week as we celebrate Easter. Christ is risen. He's risen indeed. I love you. God loves you. He's eternally blessed us. And don't forget that you are saved through Christ.